So I want to tell you, I've come to Ithaca to tell the gas companies, if any of their PR people watch these things that come out of meetings like this, let me look right into the camera and say to you gas companies, you better stay the hell away from my wife and from my goats and from my farm. If you come to hurt my wife or the animals entrusted to us, you're going to have to go through me. You get it? I'll stand in your way as a drilling ban of one person if I have to. You better be prepared to grab me up bodily, slick me up with that toxic gel, push me through that hydration unit of yours with that 80 tons of chemicals per wellbore, and blast me down into that rock at 15,000 pounds per square inch until whatever remains of my bones is cracked up and gets in there with your sand proppant and holds those fractures open, because that's the only way you're going to get the gas out from underneath my land. You understand that?
Our next speaker is Cleghorn. He is an organic farmer with a PhD in sociology. He's a writer, he's a researcher, and an activist for a drilling moratorium. His 50-acre farm is a split estate threatened by drilling.
Thank you for being here and for inviting me. My name is Cleghorn, and my wife Lucinda and I operate a certified organic farm down in Jefferson County, Pennsylvania. And we poured the last 6 years of our life and our life's savings into that farm. We live in a small unincorporated area that's called Paradise. It's been called that for more than 100 years because it's simply beautiful to behold. On our farm, there's a high point to which we take our two dogs, where we stand quietly before the beauty that we see all around us. Rolling fields of crops and alternating green and brown. Our neighbors' cows, gorgeous jerseys with their big soulful eyes, framed against the emerald pasture. Our own dairy goats lazing a summer's afternoon down in the pasture below us. And sometimes when we go up to that hill at night to admire the creation as it envelops us, we find it easy to recall the words of the poet-farmer Wendell Berry. I am wholly willing to be here, between the bright, silent thousands of stars and the life of the grass pouring out of the ground. The hill has grown to me like a foot. Until I lift the earth, I cannot move. 6 years ago, we had a dream that we could take these 50 acres and make them our small gift to our neighbors and our world by producing healthy, organic vegetables and fresh goat milk products. We wanted to do so in a manner that in a small way helps to heal our environment, our atmospheric and aquatic commons that has become stressed by an over-reliance on fossil fuel energy. We joined a growing movement in agriculture to be small and local on purpose for our health and for that of our neighbors, and yes, even for our planet. I love farming. I love our goats. I love the smell of mint and garlic in the garden. I like the feeling of feeding people good, healthy food. I want to spend every minute of every day learning more about how to take care of our soil and goats and chickens. And I'll tell you, if you haven't assisted a straining goat doe as she pushes a wet and steaming kid out into the bright, cold February air, you've really missed something. There comes with that an understanding of the unfathomable balance of external and internal factors that led to this goat having a healthy kid. We are in that balance with our goats as we assure them clean barns, clean water, and fresh air to breathe. You know, sometimes I'm a little overwhelmed by the twice daily milking routine of being a dairy farmer. But I'm comforted by knowing that what I do in the milk parlor finds its way into the very center of people's lives. Our milk and cheeses and yogurts find their way to the center of a family's table. They go to the coffee table spread of goodies at a party thrown for friends. My work finds its way to the center of other people's laughter and joy and communication and communion with one another as they experience just a little bit more the joy of being alive. That's what we do. That's farming, and I love it. And it's really all I want to be doing. But instead, for the last 6 years, that's the farming I do, for the last year, has led me to be here today with all of you, where we're talking about drilling for gas in the Marcellus Shale. Instead, for too many hours of too many days over the past year, I've been trying to understand the threat posed to my farm by unconventional gas drilling for methane gas that's been lying locked up in the shale for more than 350 million years. A Marcellus Shale well is planned just 3,500 feet from our front door. Another one could well be put on top of that hill of which I spoke, because we don't own the mineral rights to our property. And it could be that one day we wake up and find a notice posted that the well pad is coming. Given that reality, it's been difficult to fight off depression and a sense of powerlessness. I'm going to speak later of how the gas companies really count on overwhelming us in precisely that way, making us believe that we can do nothing to stop them. But while it is difficult, I'm going to also speak in a few moments about a kind of hope that can sustain us. But just for a moment or two more, I'd like to talk about what we face and how it feels. When we think of a Marcellus well pad devouring 10 acres of our 50-acre organic farm, it really not only negates our past, but it steals our future. 6 years of difficult labor could be rendered worthless. Why should we bother renovating the house? Wherever this development has gone, property values have plummeted. Much as I work to create a safe environment for our goats in the barn, to create safe pastures for them to eat from, the world around them could soon be rendered toxic and unsafe for their lives and for ours. Yet, no amount of cautionary warnings from experts like we've heard here today, many of them, from Dr. Ingraffia of Cornell University, many others, we are marshaling these facts. We know there is a problem, and yet it seems to do no good. So instead of just farming and loving every minute of that the past year, I've been researching and studying. It's part of my pedigree, I guess, as a PhD. The more I looked into unconventional drilling in tight shale formations for methane gas, the worse it got. I actually prayed often that I was wrong about what I was finding in my research. But all the pointers kept coming back to this bottom line assessment. The gas industry is undertaking a huge wager, a gamble. They call it a play, as in the Marcellus play, or risking the play of drilling for shale gas. For them, it is about putting in big money to get back even more big money. But for us, their wager puts our lives in play. It puts my farm in play. We lie right in the middle of what Dr. Terry Ingelder of Penn State, the so-called father of the Marcellus Shale, the one who has the gas companies slobbering over how much money they can make, he calls us part of the Marcellus fairway. We're in the middle of that. And we're in the middle of a hideous game that is being controlled by others. There are really so many issues about unconventional gas drilling that are being explored in this gathering today. It really overwhelms you when you start to get into it. So many issues. And I have been trying to educate my community about it through various presentations that help them to understand it. But you know what? As hard as it is for us to understand it, even the oil companies, the gas companies, I'm sorry to say, don't really understand what they're doing. An oil and gas services giant like Schlumberger calls this kind of drilling, and this is a direct quote, a combination of, quote, brute force and ignorance, unquote. There is a grand experiment being run on the people of Pennsylvania. As John Quigley, our former Secretary of the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, has put it, quote, the cumulative impacts of Marcellus development will dwarf all of the impacts on Pennsylvania of timbering and oil and coal combined. This gas drilling is going to be like a spider web spun across the state. I am afraid for the future of the state. It is hanging in the balance, unquote. That from John Quigley. Let me talk now just for a moment how, in the face of that, we summon up the hope to fight back against this reality that Mr. Quigley is describing. It starts with recognizing a simple truth about how dangerous this enterprise is and recognizing that it is, in fact, an evil being perpetrated upon us. I want to say that again. It is an evil. You see, after a year of study, the simple, unavoidable truth for me is that they have no study. They do not have nearly enough scientific evidence, and most certainly no scientific consensus that the practice of high-volume slickwater fracking of long laterals in tight shale formations, and I wish I didn't know that phrase, but I do, that practice they cannot show is environmentally safe enough over the long term. They do not know that. Even the vertical drilling part of it they're doing, they mess that up. They don't get the right kinds of drivers. They're messing all kinds of other things up doing this, as we've heard today. But the bottom line for me is at the very center of this practice, they're doing something, the consequences of which they don't understand. They are creating hundreds of thousands of well bores made of steel and concrete, flimsy things really compared to the natural subterranean forces that will likely crack and degrade them in just a few decades, maybe less. These will become pathways for the dangerous chemicals they put down there, as well as what already exists down there that the earth has been protecting us from. But by the time all of that happens, the gas companies will have gotten all their money and they would have walked off scot-free. Future residents of Pennsylvania, New York, Ohio, West Virginia will see the creation of a Marcellus Shale Superfund or something of that nature to clean it up. And the gas companies can't tell you today, and the scientists can't agree today, that that future will not happen. That, my friends, is irresponsible, reckless, and morally corrupt. We should be morally outraged, and I think many of us are, by the gas industry's arrogant act. This is an arrogant act of corporate will, as though they were some kind of Nietzschean supermen. My will prevail. I don't care what your other moral systems are. We're doing this. Look at the maps of what they plan to do. Just look at them, and you will see a relentless grid over more than half the landmass of Pennsylvania. You'll see an industry ready to carpet bomb from underneath 50% of our state's land mass with a massive series of underground explosions that may well leave the surface a wasteland for future generations of Pennsylvanians where water is no longer fit to drink. They don't really know. Maybe it will lay waste to Pennsylvania. Maybe it won't. They don't dare consider that it might do so. Certainly not. Oh, what the hell? Let's just do it, okay? Nothing ventured, nothing gained, okay? Trust us, they say. We wouldn't do anything to harm the environment, they say. Besides, look at all these jobs we have for you, they say. Calm down, they say. Let the authorities handle it, they say. And when we do raise our objections, they characterize us as the unreasonable ones. They call us hysterical, eco-freaks, tree huggers, NIMBY types, in it for the money when we go after them for contaminating our water and our environment. And above all, they insist that all our objections be polite ones that recognize the two sides of the issue. Well, on that, we can go back to Wendell Berry again, who, in speaking about mountaintop removal down in West Virginia, said, this idea here that there are two sides, that two sides can legitimately disagree is simply wrong. There can be no legitimate disagreement about the destruction of ecosystems and watersheds, unquote. That Wendell fellow can really talk now. But that's from Wendell Berry. So, my friends, we are engaged here in nothing less than a life and death struggle. Its specific conditions are new to us, but the struggle really is as old as human history. At its heart are choices that we make about whether we will sustain life or we will bring different kinds of death into our world. About 200 BC, there was a sage in Israel named Jesus of Sirach who wrote of such choices. And on this day at this gathering, his words in the book of Sirach resonate deeply with me about the struggle we face. He wrote, "The Lord has set before you fire and water. To whichever you choose, stretch out your hand. Before human beings are life and death, good and evil. Whichever they choose shall be given to them. No one does God command to act unjustly. To no one does he give license to sin." So it's our choice. But I'll tell you, God may not command it, but you can be sure that Governor Corbett and the legislature of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, where I live, have given the gas companies a license to act unjustly and to sin toward the people of our state. The governor and the legislature have done nothing but enable and support these gas companies as they choose their fire over the water that sustains our lives. Worst of all, and Sandra Steingraber spoke about this a few moments ago, they've tried to destroy any hope that we can end this reckless play they're making on our lives. They know that the destruction of our hope is the key to their victory. Aided by our political leaders, they're weaving a tangled and deadly web to entrap us in their reality, to demoralize and co-opt us into the deadly play they're making against us. I've tried a lot to talk to the adversaries in the gas industry. I've talked to a lot of folks directly, one-on-one. Many hours of trying to reason with them, help them to see some of the damage they're doing to others, tell them about people they should talk to. I have approached them, and may I say this, I've approached them with love in my heart for them as my brothers and sisters in this world, as people that in some fundamental way don't know what they do. And I've found over and over again, neither ears to hear nor eyes to see what I'm putting before them. I've communicated at length with Senator Joseph Scarnati, our state's chief cheerleader for methane gas extraction. I've reminded him of our common Catholic upbringing that we share and how this drilling violates all the social teachings of our church. I quoted the book of Job to him. Let me tell you what I told him. It's written in the book of Job. What the wicked man trusts in is fragile. What he relies on is a spider's web. He leans on his web, but it gives away. He clings to it, but it does not hold. To me, that sounds a lot like the web that John Quigley speaks of, that they're weaving across our state. I'm trying to tell him, I'm begging him not to put his trust in this tangled web that he and the gas companies are casting over us. I've asked him to stop trusting in the gas companies and listen to a few people who've been hurt by this, who've been sickened by it. Does he hear? At this point, I don't think so. There's no response. There's not even any integrity on his part about owning legislation that he has authored to try to strip localities of their municipal rights to zone. He says, oh, well, the PUC is going to do that, not me. His office wrote it. That's where he's coming from. And he's in a very bad place as a human being. I can tell you that. He is. But also he's taught me something, that just trying to reach out really with sincere love towards your brothers and sisters will not accomplish what we need here. So I'm turning again to one of those other spiritual gifts known as hope. It's the kind of hope that great social movements for justice have relied upon. It's the kind of hope that St. Augustine believed to be the greatest of the spiritual gifts when Augustine said, this hope has two lovely daughters, anger and courage. Anger so that what must not be, may not be, courage so that what should be, can be. Anger and courage. That's what we're going to need in this struggle. That is what will be the bedrock of our hope. So I want to tell you, I've come to Ithaca to tell the gas companies, if any of their PR people watch these things that come out of meetings like this, let me look right into the camera and say to you gas companies, you better stay the hell away from my wife and from my goats and from my farm. If you come to hurt my wife or the animals entrusted to us, you're going to have to go through me. You get it? I'll stand in your way as a drilling ban of one person if I have to. I will declare a moratorium on my farm that you dare not ignore, and none of your payoffs in Harrisburg will stop. You get it? If you want to come, let me make it a little bit more plain to you. If you want to come to my farm, you better be prepared to grab me up bodily, slick me up with that toxic gel, push me through that hydration unit of yours with that 80 tons of chemicals per wellbore, and blast me down into that rock at 15,000 pounds per square inch until whatever remains of my bones is cracked up and gets in there with your sand proppant and holds those fractures open, because that's the only way you're going to get the gas out from underneath my land. You understand that? On that note, let me end with a brief excerpt from a song called Anthem by a poet, singer, favorite of mine named Leonard Cohen. I don't know, it just seems appropriate for the moment. Leonard writes, I can't run no more with that lawless crowd, while the killers in high places say their prayers out loud. But they've summoned up a thundercloud, and they're going to hear from me. So, hear this, Governor Tom Corbett, Senator Joseph Scarnati, Representative Sam Smith, Heather Lampeter of Exco Resources, Matt Pizzarella of Range Resources, and all you CEOs of Chesapeake Energy and Cabot Energy and Consol and Talisman and all of you. here's what we want you to know. We're not running with you no more. We're done being polite. You've engaged in a pattern of deception about what you do for so long that you are no longer entitled to our being polite with you. We're not going to stand by while you, cloaked in all your fine laws, strip us of our rights and ruin our farms and our homes and our communities. You can go to church all you want to on Sunday, but you better start wondering whether the Lord God Almighty hears you no matter how loud you pray. You understand that? We are going to come at you with informed anger and with courage born of knowing the truth about the drilling and what you're doing to us. And we're here today to do nothing less than advance a movement of hope against the despair by which you would shackle us. The lovely daughters of hope are on the march. To put it like Dr. Terry Ingelder of Penn State says, when speaking of environmental activists, we fully intend to degrade the quality of the play. That's what he says we do. We make their bet a bad one. We degrade the quality of the play, the gamble they're taking by doing what we do here today. So, okay, you big money boys and girls on Wall Street, we want you to fear, and fear justifiably. You put your money into Pennsylvania, New York, Ohio, and West Virginia, you're not going to get the return you're expecting. You're going to get something back from us very different than that. But I also want you to know, and let me say again to the people in the gas industry and even our political adversaries, we will continue to love you as brothers and sisters. And we will continue to hope for your change. We're not here to demonize you as persons, but we're here to name the demons that you are unleashing upon us. And we're here to tell you today, you've summoned up a thundercloud and you're going to hear from us. Thank you.